Are you facing too much of SAS code in ISS and ISE studies? Use macro standardization. Here I'll consider 12 studies to be pulled from A to L into one single ISS and ISE study, SDTM and ADAM data standards wherever applicable. The problem here is macro and program standardization. Multiple programmers varying macro libraries. Different teams use different macro libraries causing inconsistent outputs. Okay, so let me explain this problem in a better way. Say for example, I have 12 individual studies, right? Some studies they were completed, some studies are still ongoing. In some studies they have been completed by some other organization or by other CRO or a sponsor. Now you have to combine all those studies and it has come to your company. Now what happens is you have multiple programmers. Now those programmers who had worked on 12 individual studies, there were so many programmers who have worked. Say every programmer, when they do any SAS code, it is not necessary that everybody will follow the same pattern of writing programs and the macros. Some people they have a habit of writing indentation or using SAS programming guidelines or coding standards, which is like indentation then commenting out the rule. If you're doing any hard code, you need to mention the reason why are you doing the hard code. If you're mentioning any formula, you should explain as to why this formula is done. If you're calculating the change, then the change from baseline, how you're calculating. So those comment section should always be maintained. That is called as neat and tidy program writing philosophy. Now some programmers they don't have that habit of doing. Now imagine you are sitting on that specific individual study where everything is messy, the programs are messy, no comments is done, somebody has done some hard coding but you do not know like who has done it, and that programmer has left that organization and nobody is there to give you the answer. Now you are joined that organization and now you are responsible and accountable for something other than all those earlier programmers they have done and they have left the job. So now you are responsible and accountable for doing the harmonization in ISS and ISE study. Are you understanding the point? So it becomes very tedious and a daunting job, and it's a very challenging piece of work where you will need patience, you will need precise thinking, you will need precise proper planning and proper harmonization. Only then all these things will fall under the same page. Now say for example varying micro libraries. Now there are various libraries, they were conducted in few studies. In some studies they have no micro libraries. So when you understand each and every individual study, you see that there are so many micro libraries. There are even nested macros. So first of all, to understand that macros, you need to first go through those macros, what it is inputting, what it is outputting, what is that program, what is that logic doing. So that basic understanding is needed. So that understanding of each and every individual studies is the first priority. Next is different teams use different macro libraries causing inconsistent outputs. So say there are 12 individual studies. Now for each individual study there were different teams, right? They have used different macros for generating all those. Now the outputs are also not consistent. It's a not consistent within the study, and it is not consistent between studies. Now understand, within a single study there is no consistent output, right? And that is one issue. And the another issue is uh, the macros which are there, they are not consistent between two studies, right? So that is why there is no consistency in output also. So all these challenging and problems you will face. So that is the reason is that whenever you get those 12 individual studies or any number of study that you need to combine into ISS and IST study, the very first thing is you need to understand each and every study, then come up with the proper planning and precision, and have some patience to come up with the harmonization plan, incorporating all the challenges and how we are going to solve them. So solution here is to create a centralized micro library with versioning and coding standards, enforce code preview review and standardized template programs. Now those studies 12 individual studies, they were written by some other programmers. They have left the organization. And why did they do that? You don't know the answer, and nobody is there existing right now to give you the answer, right? A sponsor may give you certain answer to certain extent, but they may not have a detailed answer as to what they have done exactly, that precise programmer why he or she had done it, right? So what happens in such scenario, you need to always mention the versioning and coding standards. It's very important whenever you do any ISS and ISC study. You need to create a centralized micro library. Now that one single micro library will ensure that it gives you consistent outputs, it generates consistent programs, and it generates the logs in the specific folder path. And then whenever you have any peer review is like, say for example, you have a certain validator or your assistant or your junior, like say you are sitting at a senior level, you have a junior person, so you can tell that person to at least go and, like, have the review it and see are there any facing issues or are there any problems into it, and then you can go ahead and standardize the template programs. It's again a very daunting kind of a job. When you do this macro standardization, you have to be very precise into this. One single mistake can give you all the analysis can go wrong. So you need to work with very precautionary measures also you need to take when you work on this macro standardization. So say here scenario is study teams A to L submitted different ad hoc TLFs with varying formats, right? So the step here is consolidate macros into this. You can tag versions, rerun standardized macros across datasets, and you can include person include and manifesto to run common macros. So this is what it is. Like some studies they had ad hoc, some studies they did not had, and their formats are different, right? So no matter even if you have harmonized all these A12 studies or A12 teams into one single pattern, then you need to consolidate into macros, whatever you have harmonized, and then you can rerun whatever the data sets you have. So this is the only scenario where you can create your own macros and you can create a centralized place where you will use that macro in the ISS and ISE SAP generating table listings and figures. Many thanks for watching my video and happy learning. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a feedback comment. Many thanks for your support and having a great connection.